Welcome to the Life Food Chef certification. This is Module 1, and if you could give me a Life Food Chef, is there? Yes. So basically what we've done in the very first tape is we've really been talking about food handling. Hopefully as you're viewing this, you've got a Life Food Chef certification course outline in front of you, and that you can see that this very first section that we've been going over has to do with food handling, and we've talked a little bit about receiving and storage, and we're starting to get a little bit more into the health codes and hygiene, and we need to finish the health codes and hygiene. So the first tape that you've viewed and the first lesson was really all about food handling and receiving and storage as a life food chef, the various things that you really, as a professional person, should be watching over and see that everything is put in an order like this. Things should be dated as you can, and you use FIFO, which is first in, first out. And then we've talked all about the properties of the food as it is that's received, the temperature of this food, how it should be received, and this sort of thing. We've talked a little bit about the health codes and hygiene, and so I would love to finish this section, that's Module 1, about food handling, by finishing off talking a little bit about the health codes and hygiene, so that our life food chefs all will have the equivalent of a health department's food handler's license. And that you absolutely are aware of what are the codes, and that you are running your kitchen in a manner that's according to this. We talked at the very beginning and we said, my goodness, that's so wonderful that you can imagine that you are preparing this food for your baby, and that all the food that you prepare, you imagine this is a beautiful baby that you're preparing this food for. And you absolutely would make sure that you cut the solid little bits off, you cut the things off which maybe didn't ripen perhaps, and that you really inspect everything that actually goes into the meal. And that you're very critical on a level that you let go all of the solid, anything at all, and you only ever present the very, very best. And that you do what you can to make sure that you've really selected really excellent produce. So we said that smoking would be permitted in a restaurant if it has 35 seats or more, and then and you have to have a bathroom or toilet if you have how many seats? 19. That's right. If you have less than 19, you less than have to supply a bathroom. But it seems a bit funny, doesn't it?
Yeah. Very comfortable.
Yes. And it also should have a self-closing door. It has to have a spring, and the door has to self-close. Why do you suppose that is? So everybody can be aware of that. Would it be all right to have a restaurant and the door opens up onto the throne? Would that be okay? No, you actually have to have a partition actually. The door cannot just sort of open up and there you see the throne, from everybody where they're sitting and eating. You generally have to have a partition, yes, and that also gives the person a little bit of cover who's using the bathroom, so they don't care to be seen. So now, so for sanitization, you have a biometallic thermometer, and you make sure that you have 1 or 2 biometallic thermometers, in the kitchen where you work, and that is calibrated. And how do we calibrate the thermometer? You put that in ice water and calibrate it. And you'll calibrate ice water to
32 Fahrenheit.
32 Fahrenheit. We've got a refrigeration expert here. So now, let's just talk just briefly about washing. If you have a restaurant and you actually have plates and this sort of a thing, you absolutely have to have either a certified dishwashing machine, or you actually have to have a system that's set up for washing the dishes. I just sort of saw the Flintstones, you know, with the elephant. You know, they had the elephant that would do the work. You know. So first of all, you have a wash sink. So would it be okay to have the employees wash their hands in those sinks?
No.
No. Why not?
She's putting food in
That's right. So where will we have the wash basin for the? Where will we have the wash basin? Close by. That's right, but not too close to another sink. It has to be just a sort of a little bit away, but it has to be within the work area. Where is the other place we need to have a wash basin? In the bathroom. And do we have to have hot and cold water? Absolutely you do. You have to have hot and cold water running. That's important. And then we need to provide a sanitizing sort of way that people can dry their hands and that sort of thing. You generally need to supply also a bin for things to be put, that sanitary napkins and things that can be put, and that has a lid on it, and that you always have to have it ventilated. So if it's not ventilated, what can you do? You can open the window, and that's very important. It either is ventilated or the window is open. You can't have a bathroom not ventilated with the window closed. That makes sense. When you're washing your dishes, there's generally 3 sinks that you use. There should really be 3 sinks. You should always make sure as a life food chef that your kitchen's set up and it absolutely is health code. It's not easy to work in a kitchen which is not health code, and it's not sanitary either. You really should, if you're preparing food for the public, you should really work in a kitchen that absolutely is health code. So it should have 3 sinks. The first sink is a wash sink. The second sink can be a rinse sink, rinsing the soap off, and the third sink can be a sanitizing sink. For sanitization, that temperature of the water has to be around about 170 degrees. So water in the boiler should come out at around about, it should be no less than 140, otherwise it's not health code. And it should be no hotter than 180, which after that it's like, whoa, you know, that water's too hot actually to work with. So 170 degrees, and then if you place anything in that water at 170 degrees for 30 seconds, it has to be 30 seconds around about, and that's going to sanitize whatever was left on that spoon or that plate or that bowl or something. So now you always should do what you can kind of to be health code, and so I'm going to share with you a way to go about doing things so it's chemical free, but you absolutely have to have some Clorox. Health department inspectors are really a little bit like Hitler Youth, and they really is the first thing they spot is they really are looking around to see where the Clorox is, right? When they see that, they're a bit happy, but then they look to see, is this being used or not? So there should generally be 2 buckets, and you have a rag in both of those buckets, and you should generally always have a rag in that bucket and have a dilute solution. Now in a blue bucket, you should have a half a fluid ounce of bleach per gallon, and that will work out to 50 parts per million. Now that rag is used, and that's very important, this rag is used for counter surfaces, and that all food contact surfaces, and you'll put that in a blue and colour-coded blue, so you know what it is, and you just get used to what half an ounce is and what a gallon is. It'll be pretty easy to mix up. You mix that up, and that's done. It's not a solution enough for anybody to taste it on their plate or something like that. But I generally actually I rinse all of that stuff completely. But I'm going to share with you how we go about doing this. But you have to do things in a way that you're going to satisfy the health code, and you should really know what this is as a life food chef. Working in the city here, and being employed by some of these people in the city who employ life food chefs, they generally really have a great kitchen and everything, and it should really be run like really excellently. You should run it like it's health code, and then often you might be preparing food for more than just this person. So the other bucket, good on you, Valerio. The other bucket is a red bucket, and that's 1 ounce per gallon. That's 100 parts per million. So that's 1 ounce of Clorox per gallon of water, and then you have a rag in that. And that is for all non-food surfaces that would have a contact with, it's non-food contact surfaces.
Does it matter if it's hot or cold water?
Well, when you're cleaning, it's better that it's warm, certainly, or hotter, but it doesn't have to be. That's a chemical sterilisation and a sanitizing. So how hot does it have to be to sanitize?
170.
Yes, it has to be at least 140 degrees, but for sanitizing, it's got to be generally around about 170 degrees. And then how many seconds would you have to hold it there for?
30.
How many? 30, yeah, about half a minute. Okay. In food protection, FATOM last night, F stood for food, and then so what's sort of hazardous, as a critical monitoring our own activities and critical control point as far as the food itself is concerned. What are some of the hazards that we could think of? Contamination, physical, chemical, biological, there could be, right? We talked about these things. The food itself, it could be, if it was animal, which is not, live food is not animal, because there is no life force. Isn't that interesting? There's no life force in flesh. It's gone, you see. The animal had its own battery pack that it carried around with it, The sun didn't have to be there necessarily for it. It had its own battery pack, which is more of an astral energy, whereas the plants have a bit more sun energy within them, and they might have drooped a little bit during the night, but then they pick up during the day. If you cut it during the night, it always sort of remained drooped, but if you cut it during the day, it always would remain more in its upright position. Plants have a bit more sunlight, but animals have their own battery pack that they carry around with them. It's more of an astral energy, and when they less than have their life anymore, that's gone, you see. And it's a very dead sort of a matter, actually, without that electricity there, whereas plants have the electricity. So as far as food is concerned, we said that animal product, my God, is just full of bacteria. It's unbelievable, so be mindful. So that's so food. A stood for, in FATOM, acidity. And if we talk about acidity, what sort of a pH could we get something to, and then after that point it would be okay, probably out, and it's...
It was 4.
Huh? 4, that's right. It has an acid pH of 4. It's going to be a lot safer if it has an acid pH of around about 4 or more acidic.
So that's why you can leave like apples. That's why you can leave vinegar out of the refrigerator.
That's right. And what else? There's lots of things. Miso, all of the ferments, matter of fact.
I don't put